At my own birthday dinner, my niece mouthed, "We don't sit with people like you," while everyone laughed after I paid for it all. My dad still had the nerve to text, "Payment tomorrow, right?" Like nothing happened. Then they found out I canceled the venue. I was blocked by my own family until the photos leaked online. My niece mouthed the words slow enough for me to read them clear as day. "We don't sit with people like you." The laughter that followed wasn't loud. It was worse. That tight, knowing kind of laugh that hums between people who believe they're safe in their cruelty. I didn't say a word. I just took my son Eli's hand, stood up, and walked out of my sister's brand new house without looking back. My phone buzzed before we even hit the car. "Dad, payment tomorrow, right?" Payment. Like it was just another Wednesday. Like they hadn't just humiliated me and my kid in front of the whole family. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed, then typed back, "Not my problem." That was the moment it started. The shift. The unraveling. The next morning, one text message from me was all it took to flip everything upside down, to turn their smug laughter into something closer to panic. I shouldn't have gone that night. My gut told me not to, but Eli had begged. He missed his cousins, said he wanted to show them the coding game he built on his tablet. 9 years old, already designing things I could barely understand. I told myself it'd be fine. One dinner, just family. The house was in Arlington Heights, new construction, expensive, sterile. Beige furniture, fake plants, candles that had never been lit. My sister, Caroline, opened the door in a silk blouse like she was hosting an open house, not a family dinner. She hugged Eli, a stiff, camera-ready hug, then greeted me with that frozen smile she uses when she's pretending to be happy to see someone. Her husband, Evan, was in the kitchen decanting wine. My parents were already seated, my brother and his wife halfway through a bottle, laughing too loudly. Same lineup as always. The same unspoken hierarchy where I sat at the bottom, the fixer, the helper, the one who quietly cleaned up the messes. And the cruelest part? That house. The one Caroline bragged about online with captions like "hard work pays off." It existed because of me. I'd fixed her credit, negotiated the mortgage, wired the down payment from my own savings. Not a thank you, not once. Eli had picked out a box of cookies for his cousins, his little peace offering. He held it out as we walked in. None of them even looked at it, just ran past him, laughing. He lowered the box slowly, and I watched his face try to hide the confusion. We sat at the far end of the table. Eli pulled out his tablet, excited to show off his coding project to his cousin Maddie. He was glowing, that rare kind of joy you only see in kids who believe they're safe. Then Maddie leaned in, made sure I could see her face, and mouthed it. "We don't sit with people like you." It wasn't just words. It was a dagger wrapped in innocence. Laughter spread like wildfire, my brother, his wife, even my mother with her tight little smirk. Caroline didn't say a word, just sipped her wine, pretending she hadn't noticed. But she noticed. She always noticed. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just stood up, took Eli's hand, and said, "We're leaving." You could feel the room tense, like they'd suddenly realized they'd gone too far. I didn't give them a chance to backpedal. In the car, Eli asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I said, "No, you didn't." He nodded, but I could see the question still sitting heavy in his eyes. The house faded in the rearview mirror, but something else stayed behind, a promise. A quiet, simmering kind of promise that they'd feel every ounce of what they'd just done. When my phone buzzed again, I already knew who it was. Dad, always practical, always indifferent. "Payment tomorrow, right?" That was when I decided I was done funding their comfort, done being the silent safety net they took for granted. The next day, I sent one message, clean, short, and final. And when Evan read it, I knew the clock had started ticking. Everything they'd built on my back was about to collapse. Caroline wasn't always like that, or maybe she was, and I just didn't want to see it. When we were kids growing up in Joliet, she was the golden one. The one who got away with everything because she smiled right after. Mom used to say, Caroline could talk her way out of a tornado. And I was the quiet one, the responsible one, which in our house really meant the one who cleans up everyone else's messes. Our parents had this unspoken system. Caroline was the charm, I was the labor. She'd crash a car, I'd call the insurance. She'd forget rent, I'd cover the late fee. Even back then, they treated it like a law of nature. She breaks, I fix. It started small. $50 here, a phone bill there. Then it turned into credit cards, loans, co-signing. I told myself it was love. That's what family does, right? They show up. But over time, it started feeling like showing up was the only thing I was allowed to do. When I left home at 19, I swore I'd build a different life. I went to DePaul, worked nights at a diner, and took every tech certification I could afford. I built something real, stable, quiet mine. When I had Eli, I promised myself I'd never let him grow up the way I did, feeling like love had terms and conditions. Caroline, on the other hand, bounced from job to job. She always had a story, a toxic boss, a bad team, a sabotage. She could spin failure into tragedy faster than anyone I knew. Every time she fell, my phone would light up. "You're so good with numbers. Can you help me just this once?" Just this once turned into a pattern that lasted 15 years. When she met Evan, she changed, or pretended to. Suddenly, she was posting quotes about independence, manifesting her dream home, and acting like she'd reinvented herself. But behind all those filters, I was still the one making it happen. She couldn't qualify for a mortgage because her credit score was garbage, so she called me. I told her I'd think about it. She started crying. Told me she didn't want to raise her girls in an apartment anymore. Said it was about the kids having space. I caved. Again, I cleaned up her reports, paid off a collection account in her name, and co-signed on the house. The down payment came from my savings, $27,000. I remember wiring it on a Thursday morning before work. She said she'd pay me back within a year. She never did. After that, she started treating me differently. Like a subordinate. Like I was useful, not equal. She'd brag about her new house, while pretending it wasn't built on my signature. The night before that dinner, I saw her post a picture of the house on Instagram. A toast to new beginnings. Hard work pays off. I stared at it so long my coffee went cold. There was a champagne glass in her hand, the one I bought her for her engagement party, and a fake smile that looked like victory. Eli saw it too. He said, "Aunt Caroline looks happy." "Yeah," I told him, "she does." But what I wanted to say was, she looks comfortable. And people like her only get comfortable when someone else is carrying the weight. So when I got that message from Dad, "Payment tomorrow, right?" I realized the joke wasn't just on me. It was on the version of me they all depended on. The one who fixed everything, who didn't make noise, who made their lives work. That's when I sent the text. The one that made everything fall apart. "Lease transfer starts today." It sounds simple, but that sentence was the thread that held Caroline's life together. The lease wasn't just for her house. It tied into her refinancing agreement, her car, and even her utilities, all under a joint setup I'd been managing for years. She didn't know that, but she was about to find out. By the time I got to work the next morning, Caroline had already called me 6 times. I didn't answer once. She texted at 10:12 a.m., "What is this? What did you do? Why are you acting like this?" Then at 10:15, "This is over a child." That word, child, sat in my chest like acid. No, Caroline, this was over 15 years of being treated like a personal bank account with a pulse. This was over the smirk she wore while her daughter humiliated mine. I left my phone face down and opened my laptop. My job was remote, financial systems analyst. Irony, right? I managed money for people I didn't even know, while the people I did know thought I was their safety net. Around noon, Eli padded into my office. He had syrup on his chin from pancakes. He said, "Are we still mad at them?" I smiled. "No, baby, we're just done." By 1 p.m., I got a call from the dealership, the one holding the car lease under both Caroline's and my name. I told them to initiate the transfer. They said it'd take about a week, and the remaining payments would move to the new signer. Perfect. I asked them to mail the paperwork to her house. I wanted her husband, Evan, to be the one to open it. The first wave of panic hit by late afternoon. The family group chat started buzzing. My brother, Mark, "Really? Dramatic solo act again? Over what cookies, Dad? You're taking things too far." "Mom, your sister's upset. Fix this?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. For once, silence worked harder than words ever could. That night, Eli and I went out for burgers and root beer floats. We didn't talk about family. He asked if we were still going to Grandma's for Thanksgiving. I told him, maybe not this year. He just said, "Okay." Later, my phone buzzed again. "Mom, your father's card didn't work for the utility bill again. Can you fix it before shut off?" No question mark, just entitlement. What she didn't know was that I'd shut off autopay that morning. They were about to learn what not my problem really meant. It didn't take long. The next day, Dad texted, "My card's not working. Can you check what's wrong?" He still didn't realize I'd taken myself off the account completely. I wasn't being spiteful, just done. Done being the invisible scaffolding holding up people who couldn't stand on their own. A few hours later, Caroline posted on Instagram again, her daughters at a pumpkin patch. "Family is everything." I scrolled right past it. An hour later, a Venmo request popped up, $210 for Halloween stuff. "You said you'd help." I declined and blocked her. She must have realized then that something had shifted. Because that night I got an email from her husband, Evan. Subject, "Let's clear the air." Body, "We all said things we didn't mean. Let's not make this worse." I didn't open it again. I didn't need closure. What I needed was space they'd never let me have. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop, the one no one knew existed. The record of every favor, every loan, every "can you just help me this once?" That had chipped away at my savings for the last decade. Groceries for Caroline during her maternity leave, $1,250. Dad's heating bill during that snowstorm, $268. Mark's dental surgery copay, $420. Christmas gifts from everyone that I'd actually paid for too many to count. It was all there in black and white. My quiet servitude, documented like a ledger of humiliation. I sat there staring at the total, almost $70,000, and laughed, not because it was funny. Because I finally saw the truth. I wasn't the broke one. I was the backbone, and they'd spent years pretending not to notice. Sunday morning, Caroline called from Evan's phone. When I answered, she skipped the pleasantries. "They didn't mean it. Maddie didn't mean it. You're making this into a big deal." I said, "Did you hear what your daughter said?" Silence. Then, "She didn't mean it." "I didn't mean it either," I said. "Didn't mean what?" "Paying your bills, co-signing your house. Pretending I believed you'd ever pay me back." She hung up. By that night, I knew it was only a matter of time before everything started to break. And I was right. The next morning, my dad's car got towed. It started with a call from a number I didn't recognize, area code 309, Peoria. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, is this Miss Monroe?" the voice asked. Polite, nervous. "This is she. I'm calling from Haven Mutual Auto Insurance. We're trying to confirm a policy cancellation for Mr. Thomas Monroe." My stomach dropped. That was my dad. "I didn't cancel anything," I said. "Well," he said carefully, "the auto pay method linked to your account was removed. The policy's lapsed, no payments in 6 days. I just wanted to confirm that was intentional." I stared out the window. My coffee had gone cold again. "It was," I said finally. "Have a nice day." He went quiet for a second before hanging up. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. "Mark, what the hell did you do to Dad's insurance?" "Caroline, you've gone too far this time." "Dad, truck's been impounded. They pulled me over for a taillight, said no insurance." "Are you happy now?" "Happy." The word hit me strange. Like they couldn't comprehend that this wasn't about happiness, it was about consequence. I hadn't called the cops. I hadn't done anything illegal. I just stopped paying for grown adults who thought I owed them something. But in their world, that was the ultimate betrayal, the moment the free ride ended. The truth? That truck meant everything to Dad. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. He'd rebuilt the engine with a friend back in the 90s. When I was little, he'd drive me to the flea market on Saturdays, old country songs playing, the cab smelling like engine oil and pine air freshener. I used to think those drives were our thing, our quiet bonding. Turns out they were just the setup for decades of obligation. Now he was sitting at an impound lot, angry not because his truck was gone, but because I'd stopped fixing it for him. By sunset, Mom finally broke the silence. She didn't call, she texted. "I don't know what's going on with you, but you're really hurting people who love you. This isn't how family works. Your grandmother would be ashamed." There it was, the weaponized guilt. The one she saved for special occasions. My grandmother, the only person who ever truly saw me, had died 5 years ago, and Mom still used her name like a leash. I sat there staring at the message, something sharp building behind my ribs. Then I opened my laptop and finished what I'd been putting off for months. A formal closure of the joint education fund I'd set up for the nieces and nephews. They didn't even know it existed. Every time I skipped buying toys or cut corners for Eli's birthday, that money went there, $50 here, $100 there, to give those kids a future. I closed it, withdrew the balance, and transferred it into Eli's savings. He was the only child in that family who deserved it. The next day, there was an envelope in my mailbox. No name, no return address. Inside was a beaded bracelet, plastic, uneven, clearly handmade. The bead spelled Eli, but the L was missing. Folded around it was a note on torn notebook paper. "I'm sorry. Mom says not to say that, but I am. Please come to my Christmas play. I miss you and Eli." It was from Maddie, the same niece who mouthed those words at the dinner table. And I believed her. Because kids don't fake guilt like that, not that kind. But that letter told me something bigger. Caroline hadn't just poisoned herself, she'd poisoned her kid. Taught her cruelty, pride, manipulation. And now even Maddie was starting to feel it rot. That night, I sat on the couch with Eli asleep beside me, the bracelet resting on the coffee table. For a second, I almost caved. Almost picked up my phone to text Caroline back. Then I remembered something. She still needed me. Because without my signature, she couldn't refinance her mortgage. And her balloon payment, $218,000, was due in 43 days. She thought I didn't know about the refinance. She thought I'd forgotten that my name was still on the loan as a cosigner. She thought she could keep her house, the one I'd helped her buy, while pretending I didn't exist. But I knew everything. I had the date circled on 3 calendars and set as a countdown on my budgeting app. 43 days. That's how long she had before the house she bragged about turned into a foreclosure notice. And this time, I wasn't going to stop it. 43 days. That number started echoing in my head like a clock ticking underwater. It wasn't rage anymore, it was precision. Cold, steady, intentional. I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted them to see. To understand what happens when the person they depend on finally steps out of the shadows and lets them hold the weight of their own choices. By the next week, the messages turned frantic. Caroline called from different numbers. She left voicemails, each one sounding a little more desperate than the last. "I just need to ask you something. You're not really going to let this happen, are you? Please, think of the girls." The last one almost got me. The girls. But then I remembered that dinner table, the way she watched Maddie mouth those words to Eli and did nothing. I remembered her smile, the glass of wine in her hand, the way she pretended it wasn't happening. So no, thinking of the girls wasn't enough anymore. I started organizing everything. First, I gathered every document tied to their lives that still had my name on it: auto insurance, joint utility accounts, the house deed, the car lease, even the credit union savings Caroline had once begged me to help her open. I wrote down every date, every renewal term, every auto pay linked to my accounts. Then I started one by one, methodically removing myself. Each phone call was short and polite. "Please remove me as a co-owner." Click. Done. The woman at the mortgage company sounded hesitant when she said, "You understand, Miss Monroe, if you refuse to resign, the refinance cannot proceed." "I understand perfectly," I said. "Please send written confirmation." I hung up and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. By day 28, the cracks were visible even from a distance. Mark texted me out of nowhere. "You win." Everyone's turning on each other. Then another, 5 minutes later. "She's losing it. Bank keeps calling. Mom's begging you to fix this." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the messages to my email and archived them. Documentation. Proof that this time, I wasn't the one causing chaos. I was just stepping back and letting gravity do what it does best. That same evening, Caroline finally broke the silence herself. It was late, 9:17 p.m., and her message came through like a flare in the dark. "I think we need to talk. I know things went too far. I need to ask you something, please." Still no apology, still no ownership. Just a plea wrapped in politeness. I didn't reply. I wanted her to feel what it's like to live waiting for a response that never comes. On day 32, Mom texted, "Your sister's scared. The bank says they'll start foreclosure in less than 2 weeks. They can't refinance without you. Please, think about your nieces. Think about family." Family. That word used to pull me back every time. Not anymore. I read the text twice, then locked my phone. Instead, I made hot chocolate for Eli. We sat on the couch watching Back to the Future, and when he asked if I was okay, I told him, "Yeah, baby. For the first time, I really am." Because that's what revenge really is. Not fire, not shouting, not chaos. It's stillness. It's walking away while the people who built their world on you finally notice you're gone. Then, 6 days before the balloon payment deadline, I got another text. From Caroline this time. 10 words. If you don't sign, I'll understand, I really will. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't sound like her. There was no manipulation, no guilt, just exhaustion. But I didn't respond, because I knew something she didn't. The mortgage wasn't the only thing tied to that house. And one signature, mine, could decide not just whether she lost it, but who she lost it to. It was the 5th night before the payment deadline when everything changed. Eli was asleep on the couch, a blanket kicked halfway off when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something about the area code made me pause. Evan's work number. I answered quietly. Hello, there was silence on the other end, then a voice I didn't recognize. A woman's voice. Hi, is this Natalie? It took me a second to register the name. No one called me that except Caroline's family. Who's asking? I said. This is Jenna. I work with Evan. I'm sorry if this is weird, but I think you should know what's going on. She hesitated, then continued in a rush. He told me you co-signed the house. He said everything was under your name. And now that things are falling apart, he's trying to transfer the mortgage to my name. I froze. What? She spoke fast, her words tumbling over each other. I didn't even know he was married until last month. He said he was separated, that the house was his. But the bank called me today. They said your name's still on everything, and he can't transfer a thing without your consent. My throat went dry, so that was it. That was why Caroline suddenly wanted to talk. It wasn't just the bank or the bills. It was Evan. The whole time she'd been begging for my signature, he'd been planning to take the house out from under her, using my paperwork to do it. And she didn't even know. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he lied to me, Jenna said, her voice shaking. He said it was all handled, but when the bank mentioned your name, I realized I'd been dragged into something ugly. You don't deserve to be blindsided. When she hung up, I sat there in silence, the phone still pressed against my ear, feeling everything click into place. Caroline hadn't betrayed me just with words. She'd built her whole life, her image, her family, her pride, on a man who'd been slowly trying to gut her from the inside. And the one thing standing between him and her was me. The next morning, I went to the bank in person. Sat across from a mortgage officer named Grant who recognized my name immediately. Yes, Miss Monroe, he said. The file's quite a mess. Mr. Evans tried to initiate a partial title transfer last week. Claimed your co-signature was no longer valid due to a family dispute. We froze the process until we heard from you. I laughed, short and sharp. Good call. He looked at me with that careful, professional concern people use when they can tell there's more to the story but know better than to ask. Would you like to make a formal request on the account? I nodded. Yes, I'd like to flag all documents for manual approval. Nothing moves forward without my written consent. His pen hovered. Including refinancing? Especially that. I walked out of the building feeling something I hadn't in years: control. That night, the silence broke again. This time, it was Caroline calling. I didn't pick up, but she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky, desperate. I know everything now. I know about Evan. He's gone, took his things, said he needed space. You were right about him, about everything. A pause. I don't know what to do, Nat. I can't lose this house. It's all I have left. I replayed it once. Then again. Part of me wanted to call back, to say I told you so, to throw every ignored warning back in her face. But the other part, the tired, quiet part, just sat there listening to the smallness in her voice. She wasn't the queen anymore. She wasn't the golden child, the influencer, the one everyone admired. She was just another person staring at the edge of a cliff she'd built herself. And I was the only one with a rope. 2 days later, another message came. This time from Mom. Your sister's been crying all night. Evan drained her account. The bank says if the balloon payment isn't made by Monday, they'll foreclose. Please, don't let her lose her home. Not like this. Not like this. Funny how the people who never defended me suddenly had endless mercy for her. But there was one thing Mom didn't know. Evan hadn't just drained Caroline's account. He'd also tried to take out a short-term loan using my co-signed documentation as leverage. The same paperwork that was now frozen under my control. If I hadn't flagged it, he might have succeeded. And that was when I realized something chilling. My revenge wasn't punishing innocent people anymore. It was stopping a predator. Caroline had built her empire on me, and Evan had built his scheme on her. A perfect chain of manipulation, until it hit the one person who finally refused to play along. The countdown was almost over. 3 days until the balloon payment. 3 days until everything she'd hidden behind went public. But before it ended, I wanted her to understand. Not just the money, not just the house. I wanted her to see who she'd become and what it cost. I didn't plan to pick up when she called again. But something in me, curiosity, maybe instinct, made me swipe accept. Her voice came through hoarse, raw, nothing like the polished version she wore online. "Natalie, please just listen before you hang up." I didn't say a word. I wanted to see what silence would make her confess. She started slow. "You remember when I said I'd pay you back? For the house? I really meant to, She stopped, drew in a breath like it hurt. "I just didn't think you'd ever make me." I almost laughed. That single sentence summed up decades of our relationship. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. "You know why I really needed you on that mortgage? It wasn't just the credit. Evan didn't qualify either. He's never had a real job. His whole contractor business was fake. He owed people, bad people, money. The house wasn't just for us, it was collateral." My stomach twisted. "Collateral for what?" "For his debts," she whispered. "He promised me it was temporary, said once his investments cleared, he'd pay everyone off. But he didn't. He used your name to get better terms. I didn't tell you because if you knew, you'd have backed out. And then they would have come after me." I sat there gripping the phone, my pulse in my throat. "Are you saying you let me co-sign a loan tied to a man with illegal debt?" She started crying. I didn't know how deep it was until it was too late. I thought if I could just get through the first year, refinance, pay you back, nobody would have to know. But when you cut the payments, when you walked away, everything started coming due. And now it's all crashing down. There it was. The reason behind every cruel smirk, every fake smile, every time she'd tried to make me feel small. She needed me to stay loyal, blind, obedient, because my credit, my name, my silence had been her shield. All those years I thought I was the helper, the giver. Turns out I was the decoy. "You didn't protect me," I said quietly. "You used me to hide your mess." She went quiet. Then, softly, "I did, because you'd never say no. You were always the responsible one, the good one, and good people don't walk away." Something in her voice, calm, resigned, almost proud, made my stomach flip. That was her horror, her twisted logic. She'd weaponized my decency. Built her entire life on the assumption that I'd never stop being good. I asked, "Was Maddie in on it too? Did you teach her to treat Eli like that?" Her breath caught. "She saw me do it," she said. "The way I talk about you. The way I laugh at you when you're not around. I thought it was harmless, just venting, but kids learn what we reward. She learned cruelty from me." Her voice cracked then, but I didn't feel pity. Only a hollow kind of grief, for both of us maybe. I said nothing, just listened as she unraveled herself. Finally, she whispered, "He's gone, Nat. He took everything. I don't even have gas money to get the girls to school. The house, if it goes, I don't know where we'll go." There was a pause, long enough that I could hear her breathing. Then she said the one thing that cut deeper than anything before. "I didn't hate you, you know. I just couldn't stand needing you." That's when I understood. Caroline's cruelty wasn't random, it was survival. Every jab, every insult, every silent treatment had been her way of rewriting the story, of convincing herself she was still in control while she was really drowning. She couldn't let herself feel inferior to me, so she made me smaller instead. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the pile of documents, mortgage files, account statements, the countdown app glowing 2 days left. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry, just awake, because now I knew the truth. She hadn't ruined me out of hate. She'd done it out of fear. Fear that one day, I'd stop being her safety net and she'd have to face the world she built with her own hands. And that day had finally come. The morning of the deadline was quiet, too quiet. No calls, no texts, no frantic emails from Caroline or my parents. Just stillness, like the world had paused to see what I'd do next. I made pancakes for Eli, the same way I always did on Saturdays. He sat at the table, building a Lego spaceship while humming under his breath. The air smelled like maple syrup and peace. At 10:02 a.m., I picked up my phone and dialed the bank. "Good morning, Miss Monroe," the representative said, her tone cautious. The refinance authorization expires at midnight. Are you confirming you do not wish to sign? I exhaled slowly. That's correct, I'm not signing. She paused. Understood, the file will close, thank you for your time. Click, that was it. No fireworks, no screaming, just quiet finality. By that evening my phone was lighting up again. Messages from my mother, my brother, even one from Evan, each more panicked than the last. Mom, they're saying the bank froze the house. What did you do, Mark? She's losing everything, Nat. Think about the kids. Evan, you made your point. Are you proud? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, Eli and I went out for ice cream. He ordered chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. I got vanilla with caramel drizzle. We sat in the car, parked across from the small park where I used to take him when things were simpler. He looked at me, spoon halfway to his mouth. Mom, are we the bad guys now? I smiled, a tired kind of smile. No, baby. We just stopped being their heroes. The next morning, Caroline showed up at my door. Her hair was messy, eyes swollen, clothes wrinkled like she hadn't slept. She didn't knock. She just stood there on my porch, clutching a folder of papers like a drowning person holding onto driftwood. Please, she said. I'm begging you. I'll sell the car, I'll pay you back whatever you want. Just help me save the house. The girls, her voice cracked. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me so Eli wouldn't hear. I'm not signing, Caroline. She stared at me, tears pooling but not falling. You can't do this to me. I looked her dead in the eye. You did this to yourself. She dropped the folder, pages scattering across the porch, bank statements, overdue notices, screenshots of texts from Evan. In one, he'd written, once the refinance clears, we're done. You'll have your money and I'll have the deed. I picked it up, looked at her. He wasn't building a home, Caroline. He was building an escape plan. Using both of us. She covered her face and sobbed. The sound wasn't pretty. It was jagged, animal, raw. For a moment, I almost reached out. But then I remembered every time she'd looked the other way while her daughter mocked mine, every text that treated me like a wallet, every apology that came only when she needed something. So I didn't touch her, I just said, you'll figure it out, you're good at pretending you have. Then I went back inside. 3 weeks later, the house was gone. The bank reclaimed it quietly. Caroline and the girls moved in with my parents. Evan disappeared completely. Last I heard, he left the state. For months, my phone stayed silent. No calls, no apologies, just absence. Then one Friday evening, as I was getting dinner ready, Eli came running into the kitchen holding an envelope. It's from Aunt Caroline, he said. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single Polaroid, Caroline and her daughters sitting in a small rented duplex. No filters, no fake smiles, just 3 tired faces trying to look okay. On the back in her handwriting were 6 words. I get it now, thank you. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just set it down and finished making dinner. Because that was all I ever wanted, not revenge for the sake of revenge, but understanding. A reckoning. Eli sat down with his plate and said, do you think they'll ever come back? Maybe, I said, but if they do, it'll be different. He nodded like that made sense. Good. Because I like us better this way. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I walked to my desk and opened the small box where I'd kept Maddie's bracelet, the one missing a letter. I slid it onto my wrist. The elastic had stretched, the beads faded, but it still fit. And as I looked at it, I realized something. Revenge hadn't destroyed me. It had rebuilt me piece by piece, boundary by boundary, into someone who finally knew her own worth. When people show you they only love you when you're useful, stop being useful. Let them see what happens when you disappear. They'll either crumble without you, or they'll learn to stand. Either way, you win.